Hello my friends, let's start this video from the military maps review, and this is the Russian map, and they show the Ukrainian offensive operation towards Kamensk in Zaporizhia direction. And if before Russian mil bloggers showed some of the arrows from the Russian side, this time nothing, just Ukrainian advancements not far away from Mala Tokmachka and of course towards Mala Sherbaki and Sherbaki. The fight is ongoing mainly for those two villages right now. Ukraine fully liberated Stepnogorsk, and this is the zoomed in image telling the situation, which is not that great for Russia, especially in Kamensk. There are some of the infiltration attacks from Ukrainian side too. Ukraine uses similar tactics to the Russian army. Ukrainian soldiers try to bypass Russian defense. Sometimes it is working, sometimes not, because all of those operations are ongoing in a kill zone. What I may say in general about this part of the Zaporizhia front lines, that it is more or less standstill for the last couple of weeks. Well, before Ukraine liberated Stepnogorsk, I think it was the last month. It was a really fast operation performed by Ukrainian military intelligence with a really capable forces, and they did it very briefly, establishing full control over Stepnogorsk, which before was fully occupied. And here we have the difficult direction for Ukraine. This is Konstantinivka, and even Russians are saying that they have less of the infiltration attacks for the last couple of days. So they slow down, and maybe they want to send more of the reinforcements to the place and attack once again. But for the last couple of days, even Russians who paint Konstantinivka in red, they say that there was just very minor movement. Also, they continue to state that Ukraine has the presence in Konstantinivka, just small groups of Ukrainian infantrymen. And how many soldiers are out there, no one knows. The group is quite small. Ukraine mostly defends Konstantinivka with the help of the drones, and the positions of the Ukrainian drone operators are in neighboring towns and villages. And this part is the border between Kharkiv and Luhansk, so this is the white border, and Ukraine started the counteroffensive from Sverdlovka village towards Novaya Horivka. And basically, those villages are the last that Russia wants to occupy and take full control over Luhansk Oblast, but still they cannot do it for a very long time, and Ukraine even counterattacks. That's great. Well, Russians also stated that they've occupied one of the villages. It's called Zalesia and Urochishe Snarskaya. Here we have it, not far away from the Russian border really, and Russia also has attack attempts to go to Sumy itself from the north. But Ukrainian military command states that it is hoax, and Russians haven't yet occupied the village of Zalesia, but on the Russian channels they state that they are successful. Okay, there is no evidence, by the way, presented, they just say like that. Well, at the same time, Russian channel shows the resistance of Ukraine in multiple of the points of the Sumy front line. Ukraine tries to minimize Russian territorial gains, and before Ukraine was really successful in the Sumy region, they occupying several of the villages, but it happened a long time ago, several months at least. But now we see that Russia tries to boost the presence in Sumy region. Maybe they want to attract more of the Ukrainian soldiers from the east or from the south to operate in the northern territories. And this is what is happening on the front lines. Ukraine operates again with the drones. Lots of the Russian vehicles are being kaboomed. Those are the videos coming from Nemezis group of Ukrainian drone army. It's kind of rare actually to witness a Russian tank. Guys, an important short reminder for you. It is very important for the channel, for this entire content. Don't forget to press like to this video just right now while you're watching it, and subscribe for the channel. Also check your subscription, because YouTube may unsubscribe you for whatever reason. Sometimes glitches are happening. Plus, you may support my job on Patreon, if you can, of course. The link for it is in the video description right below, or on membership of the channel by pressing button join. Thank you guys, you are making this content possible with your awesome support. You are amazing. And now, let's continue with the video. And Ukraine recently hit the Russian Shahid drone base, the place where Russia stores their Shahids in those trucks. So Ukrainian drones visited this area. Why do we have such a very bad visual signal? Well, maybe those are the drones from the different generation, or maybe it's just the Russian electronic warfare that sometimes even might work. The job was performed by Ukrainian Spalach drone unit, and hopefully some of the Russian drones were kaboomed. Right guys, we have even sometimes bad news from the front line. So two of the Ukrainian soldiers tried to do something with the drone here, the ground robot, but the place was really terrible because they were at the breach, and there were several of the Russian gliding bombs that finished the breach together with the soldiers, unfortunately. There were 3 aviation bombs, 3 bombs at the same breach, and one soldier managed to survive, the other one No. This is Zaporizhia region from what I understand, and Russia also tries to cut Ukrainian logistics because Ukraine has an advantage in this particular region. Right, about the Shahid drone transmitters which were working from the Belarus territory, Zelensky officially confirmed that Belarus canceled the operation of those stations. So physically those stations could be there on Belarus territory, but they're not working any longer. So the information that was shared a couple of days ago by the Russian military bloggers themselves, that Belarus canceled the signal for the Russian GSM operator MTS, so it was truthful. And it was confirmed by Ukrainian president. He said the systems had played a role facilitating Russian strike operations. And just earlier, Zelensky gave ultimatum to Lukashenko to stop those stations, otherwise Ukraine will stop them on its own, using drones. Plus, because the stations were not working, Russian drones were not flying close to the Belarus territory. So before it was like that, the Russian drones were flying from Russian territory, they enter very close to Belarus, right at the border, and then they attack Kiev from the north. And since the announcement of this ultimatum, Lukashenko, I think, decided not to risk, because his country is very close to Ukraine, and of course Ukraine has all of the capabilities to cancel all of the enterprises on Belarus territory. It would be really devastated. It's not like Russia, and Belarus has just a few of the air defense systems, and they have lots of the enterprises, lots of the production factories, so for sure Lukashenko is scared. And in this context, we have the article from the Wall Street Journal, Russia pressures Belarus in bid to open new front in Ukraine war. It's understand Putin wants it from the very beginning. He wants to use Belarus people for the full-scale aggression against Ukraine, but for Belarus it's gonna be just a disaster. So Kremlin pressures Belarus, preparing for new escalation. Moscow hopes to use the neighboring country as the springboard to expand the war in Ukraine or launch operation against the NATO members. That is more realistic, I would say, but I think NATO may also count on Ukraine in this case. I think Ukraine will respond on the possible Russian attack against Baltic states. I mean, Ukraine will use drones and missiles to hit Russian logistics on Belarus territory in this case. Moscow's report requests include use of the Belarusian territory for drone strikes on Ukraine and expanding the front line westward to draw Ukrainian troops away from the key areas in the east. Alternatively, Belarus could be used for operations against NATO neighbors. Most discussions took place between Lukashenko and the Russian ambassador to Belarus. Sources providing this information say that there are no signs yet that Russia plans are immediate operation from Belarus, but the possibility is being considered. And Belarus was already dragged to use those radars or transmitters to operate Russian Giran drones very close to the Belarus territory. Well, now not any longer. Zelensky was really serious, and dictator Lukashenko did the proper stuff actually. Yeah, I cannot show you this video fully because driver was sitting in the cockpit of this truck and drone met him right into the face. And you understand what happened next. This is Mariupol, occupied Ukrainian territory, and the truck was coming from Russia on Russian registration with the Russian driver. So Russians, it's very dangerous to operate even commercial trucks on occupied territory because you may carry, and in most cases it's like that, Russian supplies for the Russian military. On commercial trucks, yes, but for the Russian army. Well, there could be also the cargo for civilians, but Ukrainian soldiers, Ukrainian drone operators, they don't have the scanner for every sort of the truck. There is no any chance for them to check the cargo, so by default, all of the trucks are military ones. That's why Russian drivers should think twice, and I'm very happy that they filmed those videos and published them online, so maybe some of them will come to a conclusion that it's better not to take the contract on occupied territory. And guys, this is happening now, already. Yes, more than 300 drones are flying to occupied territory of Ukraine, including Crimea, and also to the Russian territory. The kabooms already heard in Sevastopol, Crimea, so Ukraine is very serious to cut Crimea from supplies completely, and Zelensky told about it today. Okay, this is Kerch from the closer perspective. The remaining oil tanks continue to burn down, and that's the show. Zelensky said that our operation, particularly in Crimea, is well planned. If what we discussed with Ukraine's partners happens, we will promptly create conditions under which Russia will be forced to cease military action and choose peace. Very interesting what they've discussed with allies, what kind of the weaponry. Well, there's some of the news from Netherlands, and long-range missiles. We are speaking about this one. It's Ruta Block 2, and Netherlands is going to purchase 700 units for Ukraine. The deal was 250 million euros, and this missile is outstanding. It's kind of the cheap in production, it's not that big, but it may fly for the very long distance of 700 kilometers. It's been produced by the Dutch company Destinus and may carry 250 kilos of payload, which is great. Ukrainian officials say that missiles will support strikes against the Russian high-value targets behind the front lines. Also, missile is equipped with machine vision and AI target recognition. This is awesome. It is smaller compared to FP5 Flamingo and less recognizable for the Russian air defense, but at the same time it carries 4 times less of the payload compared to Flamingo. So if we speak about the Kerch Bridge, of course, Flamingo is more profitable to use there, but the big problem for FP5 is to get there. This missile may do the job, but the payload is not that significant. I wonder how this missile compared to Storm Shadow and Scalp. I think this one is way cheaper. We'll see the effectiveness later on in actual use. But again, I'm not sure what Zelensky meant in coordination with allies, and he put Crimea there, and also inability for Russia to continue the war, so there should be some of the decisive thing. Tomahawks, could it be like that? I'm not sure, but today there was one remark from Donald Trump.
Winners, do you think President Zelensky is winning right now?
It's kind of the quick question from journalist. He said, "You like winners, do you think Zelensky is winning right now?" And let's hear the response.
Well, he's doing pretty well. Look, no matter how you look at it, he's doing pretty well. He's holding his own at least. A lot of people dying on both sides, but I think he's doing pretty well.
So he's doing pretty well. And from Macron personally, we know that Donald Trump was sure about the Ukrainian defeat and Russian victory over Ukraine. That's why he pushed Ukraine for a capitulation, and he sincerely was shocked why Ukraine doesn't want to withdraw the forces from Donbas, because Russia would occupy those territories in any case, so why should people die? But the current situation shows completely different scenario. Russians, NATO, lose more territories compared to their gains. And about Trump, my opinion stays without any sort of the changes, and I really like the quote from one of our officers. No matter what Trump says, even if it is some pleasant and positive statements towards us, his character has completely discredited himself and his word. Therefore, taking his statement seriously into account in 2026 will probably be the most fertile and pointless thing to do. For me, there is only one relevant question about Donald Trump. Is his behavior madness nonsense, or it is a cunning plan? Well, I think he's just a dementia guy who doesn't understand reality and he lives in his own personal world. But you may have your own opinion about Krasnov and other stories which are hard to prove, for now at least. So I mostly lean towards his craziness and madness. So he might tell something good for Ukraine, but later something good for Russia. It's the never-ending story. But luckily Ukraine still has the Pearl program, and there is some of the cooperation ongoing between Ukraine and the United States, mostly behind the curtain, but there is no direct military support of Ukraine by United States, which is very bad, very sad, and that's why this administration sucks. And look at this palace. What did he do with the White House? This is so tasteless. Oh my god.
Привет, малыш. А не хочешь мне заправить полный бак? Что скажешь?
Full tank. Proposal for you guys. Are you ready for for refueling procedure? She's from Moscow, by the way. That's another one. No fuel, help. Okay, so the time lapse, she's just staying there. Oh, probably stuck in the middle of the street without any fuel. I wonder if someone stopped and really fueled the full fuel tank for her car. And this lady says that she went to one gas station, then to another, and there is no fuel. Somehow she made it home, and she cannot drive any longer because she is out of fuel almost completely, and she'll just walk. That is what she says. I wonder what's the region of Russia is that, because they have different situation with the fuel, but mostly, as average, it's very terrible. So this is the Russian map. Red territories with the government limits, amber territories where the private fuel companies introduced their own limits, and the gray ones, well, the information is absent. So you see, even though Ukraine is unable to hit Far East territories, but still there is a fuel crisis and it's going to escalate. That's pretty much interesting. The fuel deficit now is even more severe compared to the last year. And the fuel prices are rising not just for Russian civilians, for you to understand. It is also touching a lot Russian military budget. So gasoline prices spike adds to worse economic toll for Russians. Fantastic, actually, for Ukraine. It's like a domino effect. You hit a refinery, the fuel prices are skyrocketing, the rating of Putin dropping down, and the fuel is not enough for the Russian military, even sometimes. The budget has to be reconfigured to take money for the war effort from the social part of the budget, and that makes Russians angry even more. Well, still, many of them like Putin's regime, but they start to understand that something goes not according to plan. And all of that are Ukrainian prompt sanctions, kinetic ones. Cheers. Putin visited one of the test pilots of MS-21 and the airplane itself. This is the so-called competitor to Boeing and Airbus. In a single-aisle configuration, initially it was the cooperation between Russia and Western producers, also Boeing and Embraer, but because of the sanctions, Russia had to reinvent the airplane, lots of the spare parts and most of all engines. Because before on MS-21 the Western engines should have been installed. I'm not sure what manufacturer, I don't remember really, maybe Pratt & Whitney, I don't think it's Rolls-Royce, but anyways, now they put PS Russian engines. But this Russian test pilot, who was probably testing Ilyushin 14 or something like that, very old Soviet planes, because he is old himself, I guess older than Putin, tells that he wants sanctions to never end, because it is a good thing for this particular airplane.
Вот тут, блядь, с корнями вообще конкретно нахуй вынесло этот внешний. Ебать, и здесь то же самое.
Well, it seems like for the Russian airplanes, it's not always great to have Russian-made engines. So because of the sanctions, Russia forced to do so, but ultimately managed to fully replace all imports. In fact, we have now reviewed some of the equipment that was showcased in a number of the areas. It is clear that not only does this equipment match the world's best examples, but in many respects it actually surpasses foreign Western standards. So, Russia produces better planes or what? Better than Boeing, better than Airbus? Well, he's daydreaming. Putin is outside reality, and Gerashenko, thank you so much for subtitles. This guy is nuts. He doesn't understand what is happening on the front lines. He doesn't understand what is happening in the Russian economy. Well, it is a complete disaster, and the more Putin is in power, the worse it is for Russia, which is actually good. Alright, some news from Poland. Poland is awaiting the transfer of unmanned aero vehicle production technologies in exchange for delivery of additional MiG-29 type fighter jets for Ukraine, said Poland's Minister of Defense Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz. The discussion concerns the delivery of 9 aircraft, which Warsaw announced back in December 2025, half a year ago. And yeah, Ukraine needs those jets, of course, but now with those scandals and the Polish president, I think Ukraine should, after all, supply drone technologies to Poland, you know, step over this prick president Nawrocki and just help partners in Poland, because Poland is our neighbor, it's not our enemy. It just for now has the crazy president. It's like with Hungarians who had Orban before. Yeah, Hungarians are awesome, so Polish people too. Just some of the politicians want to spread hatred, but I support for Ukraine to share all of the technologies which Ukraine gained during this war with Poland. It should be done, because we have one common enemy, which is Russia. Well guys, that's it for today, and please support my job if you can, of course, on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description right below, or join membership of YouTube channel by pressing button join. Guys, you are amazing. Thank you so much for your kind support and for making this content possible. Also, don't forget to press a like to this video, subscribe for the channel. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.